really does bother both myself, and I'm here with Commissioner Eric Anderson, and I know coming in is Commissioner Nick DeRocco to follow up. He just called, he's just caught in traffic there. But, and of course with our county administrator, Terry O'Connor, and then our staff here. So as we had the last meeting here, we came in here with our idea of what our next moves were going to be for the plan here. With that, I want to thank Jeff Pursley here and Waste Management for putting together a very detailed plan moving forward there. Obviously, none of us, or at least I can speak for myself, I shouldn't say that about my colleagues, but at least myself, not having an experience in landfills or with that, taking the opinion and the expertise from these individuals on how, most importantly, we could run this efficiently, but most importantly, to keep the quality of life to the residents of Tinton Falls. And, you know, as much as people will get annoyed at myself and the county, and at the end of the day, you know, I am the county. Eric Anderson is the county. It falls on our shoulders. But at the end of the day, truly, when I tell you, it bothers me as much as it was bothering you, and they know that because they're getting the back end of my frustration here. But with that being said, I think we have a plan that we shared with some of you, and I think some of you have even visited the landfill since the last meeting there. With that being said, I did notice that we had, since that last meeting, we did have a period of time where we saw some improvement there, not to where it's been, where it's acceptable to us. But I think with the presentation that's going to be delivered tonight with the 36 90-day plan, plus the investment that financially, and I don't know if you're going to touch on that at all, with that financial, interest that the county is putting out there, we're putting in there to show that we're just not hiding behind it. We're speaking with dollars to try to make this as perfect of a landfill that you could possibly have if you're having a landfill. So with that being said, I think the next best move for us is to have Waste Management come up, give you a short presentation on what that 30, 60, 90-day plan is, take some questions, obviously, from concerned citizens, take questions from the mayor and council, and hopefully move into the right direction. So at that time, give you a call.
Everybody hear me okay?
Sure. Can you introduce yourself, sure, just so they know? Yeah,
so from the last meeting, my name is Scott Perrin. I am the Area Director of Disposal Operations for WM's Greater Mid-Atlantic area. So appreciate the opportunity to come back in front of the council and provide an update on some of the work that's been completed to date and where we plan on taking things over the next 60 to 90 days. So we did prepare a small presentation for the group, but unfortunately the projector's not working this evening. So I'm just going to get right into the heart of what we've been working on since the last meeting. So when we were here last, we talked about the fact that this facility has 2 enclosed ground flares on site. They're dubbed Flare C and Flare D. Those are the systems or the units that actually destroy the landfill gas that's generated by the facility. At the time when we started having odor issues, Flare D was the only flare on site operating, but we've since fired Flare C. And what that gave us the ability to do was to basically control and or destruct the additional landfill gas that's being generated from the site as a result of all the heavy rainfall that we discussed during the last meeting. So we've increased the gas flow rate from the facility by about 30%, which is pretty significant, and it's about what we expected after having such heavy rains at the end of last year, coming in the early part of this year. We have finished the surface collectors. We had shown, I think, a map of some of the surface collectors that were going on the very peak of the landfill. So we put in some additional gas control so that we didn't have any emissions popping at the surface, which could be lead to a potential offsite odor. And we did a lot of work on the cover material, both the intermediate and daily cover material. So we had a lot of washing from all the heavy rain, a lot of rills, washouts. Most of the slopes were regraded, recovered, and a lot of that work was repaired. So by improving the cover surface, it actually helps to reduce the surface emissions from the landfill gas from the facility. One other thing we did too is we met with New Jersey DEP. went over some of our concepts and plans as far as what we want to try to do over the next 60 to 90 days. I think the general feedback we got from that meeting is that they were pretty impressed by the efforts that the county was willing to move on and invest in. So to Mr. Arnone's point, you're looking at about a $25 to $30 million investment overall in environmental controls between final capping, temporary capping, gas system expansion, and some ancillary work around that facility. So not an insignificant amount of money being spent to make sure we address the issue going forward.
So I'm just going to interject real quickly, and you're going to give a time period on how long that would take.
Yes, yes. So again, the items I just went through are things that are completed as of today. There'll be no more work really associated with those items. We'll probably work on the gas system itself to refine or tune the well field, as they call it. So we'll balance the flow a little bit better. We'll get the quality from the wellheads themselves in better shape, but that's going to be an ongoing process, and it's just something that's sort of routine maintenance throughout with the operation of the landfill. On the immediate horizon, we've now moved into well drilling, or the drill rigs on site to drill new vertical gas collection wells at the site. We're expanding the gas system by adding 21 more new vertical gas wells, so pretty significant increase. Right now, I think there's around 300 collection points on site, if I remember correctly, so there's going to be 21 more new locations where we're going to be able to extract the gas from the landfill as it's being generated. We're finalizing the temporary cap or temporary cover design with the county's engineer, Tetra Tech. We have ordered all the materials to do that capping event. They're actually on site, ready to go. It's about 30-some acres, 31, 32 acres of temporary cap that we're going to install on the peak of the landfill. So you'll see a new membrane cap going into place here in the very near future, probably sometime in the early May timeframe. What that'll do is it'll help keep the rainwater out of the landfill and help us control some of the cover integrity issues that we had as a result of the heavy rain. But it'll also give us a good barrier to be able to pull more landfill gas out of the waste itself, because you're going to be drawing vacuum up against a sealed surface.
Can I ask you a question on the water issue there? So if everybody remembers when we first had this bad issue years ago, 4 years ago, when we brought in waste management to take care of the facility for us, and we saw a decline in the odor there. But you were saying that basically the reasoning for the increased odor had something to do with the rainfall. And we did reach out to our neighboring counties to see if that was the case. Not that we didn't trust what you were telling us, but they did also agree with that. You think no matter what, by doing this process here, will give us the ability to not allow that to happen again?
Yeah, I think by keeping the rainwater out, a little bit more of a controlled environment within that waste mass itself. Rainfall is a catalyst for gas generation. So as the rainwater moves its way down through the waste, it just creates that environment where the bugs generate and decompose the waste at a higher or increased rate. So by keeping that rainwater out, we should have better control on the increase in the generation rate of the gas. So coupled with that, we're already working on the grading associated with the temporary capping. So we're working on getting the top deck in good order so that once the capping is installed, we'll have good stormwater runoff and control going through the basins that are in and around the facility. We continue to work on washout repairs and cover repairs, so that's just an ongoing maintenance item. It's just never going to stop for those areas that are sort of open and exposed to the elements, but it's something that we're going to be able to do a little bit more quicker and better when we kind of cut down on how much open cover there is around the entire site. Because right now, only about 15% of the area has a temporary cap on it. By the time we're done with this project and a final cap project, it's going to be more like 75% of the area will be under some sort of cap. So that'll help reduce on that cover maintenance item. And then moving into the sort of the future phases, probably later this year, if not early part of next year, we're going to finalize the design of a final cap increment for the site. So it's looking to be about 15 acres by the time it's all said and done. But there, it'll be similar to the temporary cap, which is just an exposed plastic membrane. The final cap will actually have the membrane, the cover soil, and the topsoil placed. So when we're all done, that'll all be seeded, stabilized, and it'll be in parts of the landfill that have already achieved final grade by the permit, and no future filling activities will occur. So that's a little bit farther out project, but again, once the temporary cap project's installed, the final cap project's installed, you take into account the amount of exposed geomembrane already in place, about 75% of the open area will be under some sort of a membrane. And that's it. I mean, along the way, if we find any issues with the gas system, we'll make the necessary repairs. You know, I think when we did the surface collectors, we found a couple other locations where we saw elevated surface emissions, so we worked with the contractor who was on site, we immediately expanded it. We think all that helped and contributed to sort of the observed reduction in odor in and around the facility over the last
And
couple
can
of
you talk
months.
about and maybe Jeff, you might be the one to interject on this one, our partnership with New Jersey Natural Gas? Right.
So one of the great advancements that we're going to be taking is that we are having a contract partnership relationship with New Jersey Natural Gas. They are going to build a gas processing plant at the landfill to process all of the gas that is collected. And so we're going to shift from the flares to a gas processing plant, which is going to generate, it's going to use up as much gas as we can produce, and it's also going to generate a significant revenue for the county.
Plus,
going forward.
on top of it being very environmentally sound. We'll be the only county, I think we're the only county, or if there might be one other one, I'll defer that to Mr. Rocco or Commissioner.
Atlantic County.
Atlantic County is the only one that has jumped on board on that, and this is something that meets all the needs. Obviously, hopefully, to reduce some of that, again, any excess odor that should occur, plus on top of it being environmentally sound.
Yeah, and then I think the only thing to add, and Jeff, I don't know if you want to speak to it a little bit more, but we spent a lot of time talking about improving the communication, using the county website to put updates out to the general community. So that's definitely something that's on the horizon. We're working through. We're getting the information pulled together so that there'll be some more frequent communications out there for community members to be able to access and see what we're working on.
Okay. Should we talk about the communications and the process from this point on? Should we go through that? So who should I have?
As a result of what we're going through now, we have we've been exposed, we've done some research. You have a committee that has pointed the way for us to take a look at other websites for other county landfills. We've got some very good ideas. We've already started on making that a much more transparent website, full of information. We're designing that now. I don't know if you recall, but a couple of years ago when we had the other problem, we started with a monthly report to the council that went through the administrator's office. We're going to post things on that website doing that. We're also talking about the way that we can, and researching different ways that we can put results of odor complaints on the website. And Nelson is really the gentleman that's chasing the complaints, working with the homeowners, and we're going to have a part of the website that's going to be the chronological orders of what the complaints are by date, time, and whatever else we can do without violating any confidentiality, so that people that have had complaints can easily go to the website if they remember what the day was and what the time was. If they made their complaint, they'll be able to find it there.
So what we found, and this was new information to myself there, what I was finding, and I want to thank the council for providing this information, was the response time from when a call was actually called in and when it was actually addressed. It was ridiculous. If you look, which just recently I got the call data there. Now, a lot of this, and I'm not passing the buck on to anybody, but a lot of those calls were going to DP. DP's response time was horrific when they were coming back with at least visiting the site and coming through there. We're going to change that back. And maybe Nelson, you want to talk a little bit about what we're looking into?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. If my voice isn't familiar to you, my name is Nelson Santiago. I'm with the Monmouth County Health Department. If you had called an odor complaint into the DEP and they had forwarded it to my office for investigation. It's either my voice or one of the 7 other people in my office that is odor certified to conduct that investigation would be the ones calling you back. What Director Arnone is talking about is having a transparency for folks to see where their complaints go. And there is an issue with confidentiality, but anybody who makes a complaint can open that through our office or through the DEP. So for any resident out there that specifically wants to see what happened with their complaint. And I guess the issue and why that's being brought up is because a lot of the complaints that we receive, we have to call the complainant back. And in order for us to be on site, we need to make sure that you're home, and that's the first step. And then if you're home, we will get out there as soon as we can, right? When we get to your property, the reason why we ask if you're home is because we're going to assess an odor, and we're going to verify that odor with you. And if that odor is verified, the next step is for you to fill out a statement of complaint form. That statement of complaint form is going to ask you some questions about how this odor affected you and your enjoyment of your life or property. And that is the basis for us to proceed with an enforcement action against the responsible party. In this case, we're talking about the landfill, but in any odor throughout the county, it could be any entity that would be responsible for that odor. Our inspector will then proceed upwind to verify that the source of that odor is in fact coming from that property. And we do that by doing odor assessments just with our nose. We analyze for character, severity, and a duration of that odor. We plot it out on a map. We do a 360. So we make sure that that odor is certainly coming from our responsible party. Once that has happened, we can then say we have a verified odor complaint, and we verified who the responsible party is, which would lead us into an enforcement action.
Can I interject for 1 second? So I think we agree, both John and myself agree on this one issue. I have a problem with that, okay? And the problem I have is each and every one of us in this room here have a different type of nose of odor, what we feel is more evasive in smelling than others. There has to be, okay, and I'm just gonna actually take a step back, because I know there is, because I live in Neptune City. If anybody's familiar with something that went on for years and years and years, was the TFH plan that just really started to simmer down in the last maybe 6 months or to a year, but for many years, from when I was mayor there, ongoing for many years, was the smell. And there was a gauge that they came to and tested it with the gauge. I think the commissioners we want that to be the decision maker of what the odor is. Not John's nose, not my nose, not Eric's nose there. We want some sort of device, mechanical device, to be able to report what that odor was, at what level it is. I have to believe there is. I'm not sure. I look at you to ask me if there is. But if there is, whatever that investment is, we want to do, if that's possible.
Well, Tom, you're welcome. I was the inspector who sent the penalties to TFH.
Okay, so you know it well.
And so what TFH did, they were a building, and they were emitting odors out of the roof. And when you have a stationary building as such, you can control those odors. And obviously, we're dealing with a different obstacle here.
No, I understand that. I understand that. What I'm just trying to detect is that there is an odor.
Right.
Because that's where we seem to be having somewhat.
Oh, they're out there. The monitors are out there.
Right.
Sure,
And they're
there are
functional, they work.
monitors, but if anybody wants to make an odor complaint, we have to follow what the state code is, okay? And that's an administrative
That-
code that allows us to have the ability to enforce odor for the citizens. So the odor has to have affected you at your property and caused you not to enjoy your life and property.
And
we
that's a
have to
decision
verify.
you make?
That's a decision that the state.
Well, something's
of New
wrong
Jersey-
because,
Well,
something's wrong because the complaints, okay.
So
I
let
understand.
me just
That's
answer
all
this,
we
let me
can-
just answer this question, and I know you're doing everything by your guidelines that you're passed down.
Right.
And I know that, I saw this for many, many years. But, and I think the frustrating part that John has seen with residents is, you know, what we constitute an odor compared to what somebody else constitutes an odor. What a person constitutes a quality of life disruption to quality of life disruption for somebody else. What I'm saying is, does the state have some sort of monitoring system that allows us, and I know not you, I know you're only following the guidelines,
Right.
so please.
Not yet. They don't have a device to measure odor. It has been approved in other states. It just hasn't been approved in New Jersey. So I would leave that up to, you know, the municipal leaders and the other legislators to explore that. You know, we can only enforce what we have the
No,
capability
I respect
to do.
that, I respect that,
I-
100%. But, John, I mean, I do believe he's telling the truth, you know.
And-
John, let
And
me- can I
it
go
doesn't
into
matter
that?
if we're
We
smelling
have to
strawberries.
lobby for that.
All right, just let me
We can
address a
enforce
couple of
on that.
issues, okay?
Sure.
And when you finish with your presentation, I have some questions, okay?
Absolutely.
Scott, in the months of February and March, how many times has either the Board of Health or Environmental Protection came to you about an impermissible odor?
They have shared the complaint log with us. I can't say there was a conversation about an impermissible odor. So what we've been monitoring is the number of complaints, and Nelson's been sharing his findings and reports
Well,
with us.
oddly enough, and there were numbers that were sent to me yesterday, there were 20, in the month of February, 26 complaints to the Health Department and 33 complaints sent to Department of Environmental Protection. There were only 7 visits and 0 were resolved. There's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with that.
So for each of those complaints, that results in us hearing from residents and them being left with either they don't get a call or they get a call, so much time has passed, or they have to go to work. You know, the complaint system is not effective. And we definitely hear that you, Nelson, are following your guidelines. But what we're seeing is we need another method. Like this isn't working, and we appreciate the efforts, the examination of the complaint system. You're hearing our concerns, which are the residents' concerns, but the system is broken.
I can't agree or deny to that. However, of those 27 complaints, when we tried to call them back, 20 of them did not pick up the phone. So how am I supposed to
Well, do you
investigate those odors?
Do you make a report
if-
about that?
Absolutely, sir.
So
Yes.
you have
Yes.
a report that says 20 people didn't call back.
So what I brought with me is the odor fact sheet. I brought it last time, and I left with all of the ones that I brought. And I asked each of you to take one. It explains our process. You have to be home when we call. If the odor is impacting you to not enjoy your life or property, I would imagine you're going to pick up your phone. And what we have found is that the phone is not getting picked up. Now, to what you were bringing up earlier, the time, we can't control the time. We are working on something to shorten that time frame between a call and a complaint investigation, and that's going above and beyond what the DEP has asked us to do. And hopefully we'll work that out very soon for the residents here in Tinton Falls. But the bottom line is, if you want to make a complaint, this is the complaint process for an enforcement action. And maybe that's the language that's not being translated properly to the citizens, because anybody can go outside and say, I smell it, and
Well,
it's horrible.
people do go to work.
Right.
People do, they make a call in the morning and they have to leave for work. They gotta make a living, okay?
They don't know if anybody's going to
So-
come out.
So because they didn't pick up the phone, the issue is dead, obviously.
Well, did that odor affect them?
Well, obviously it did because they
Right.
called.
Well, yes,
Council
if they
President, may I?
called. Right.
Just
No,
ask-
no, they called initially
The time
and then
that-
had to go to work.
Nelson, could you talk a little bit about what follows in the DEP and how well that timeframe can be?
I'm trying to.
Sure. After hours, obviously, the inspectors at the health department from 8:30 to 4:30 go home. We do have an on-call duty officer, as does the state. When the citizens call the 1877 warn DEP to make their odor complaint, there is a threshold that needs to be met in order for those calls to be forwarded to our office. You would imagine if there was a significant odor, we would get flooded with calls and those would come. So once that threshold is met, we are then given all the odor complaints that were called in that evening. They usually come in 5 to 10 at a time. And what we do, we understand that the first person might have called at 7 and we might not have had the responses sent to us until 10 with the last complainant, but we're calling the last person. We're calling them first because they were the most recent one, and that's our protocol at the health department.
So let me ask you this. Obviously, we're in a situation, maybe not a permanent situation, but is there some sort of mechanism that would allow us to have somebody closer in proximity while we're going through this ongoing situation, that would be closer housed, and at the cost of whatever it takes for us to staff that, okay? To have that person right here, so their response time is pretty much strictly, okay, geared right to the reclamation center, so that if a call comes in, they're right there at that location, or they might even be at a place where they smell it, right there to acknowledge that and verify it, and then we could get an accurate, more data that we could then
Yes.
make sure that waste management knows that there's an ongoing problem, that whatever they're doing is not working.
Yes, so we are exploring the idea of shift work. We're exploring the idea of having staff located at the landfill. That's where my office is. So we would split our duties. Those are things that just have to get approved through.
Well, we're the approvers.
Yes.
Who
And there's
approves?
3 of us here. So we're the ones that approved that there, and
I
I'm
understand.
telling you, we're approved there. So to give some sort of insurance to these guys, we're going. And, yeah.
We're checking with the union just to make sure that we're gonna go forward with this, but what we really need to address is the time. They could be in the office and the DEP is getting a call at 7 o'clock at night and not calling them.
I agree.
I'm not looking to blame somebody else, we've got an issue, but I think we have to figure out a way to get to DEP.
The DP, that's an issue that we gotta get to our legislators on.
Yes.
That's a separate issue. And I think between Eric, Nick, and myself, we'll get to them to make sure that that can be corrected. But if there's anything that the county's involvement is, you gotta do it.
So Commissioner, let me ask you this then. If you, obviously you're standing behind your word and said that you're gonna make this happen as far as the possibility of shift work and things like that. So why don't we couple that with a direct link to those persons in the Mountain County Health Department? So we don't have to wait for batch calls to come in for them, and that'll cut down the delay of the response times too. Can pull off the shift work that you're inclined to back, right?
Yep.
If we have a direct corresponding line to them or some mechanism in place to get those complaints to you, your folks directly.
Listen, the bottom line
Takes
is,
that batching out, right?
and I'm gonna be frank, the bottom line is this, we ran a landfill. We knew how to not run a landfill, okay? We did a very good job of that, there, and we got out of that business. We put it in their hands, okay? At the end of the day, Your job will be much easier if they succeed at their job. So we're looking at you, obviously, to succeed in your job, we pay you to succeed in your job. But in the interim period of time, we're gonna make sure, and we're gonna put the resource there to regulate, to make sure that everything is properly done here
Well-
and responsible.
Let me, so, Mr. Santiago, are you saying that monitors are not accurate, or that we shouldn't use them, or should we use them? Because I see this nose thing is never gonna work. If the monitor records a violation, you got the time, the date, and that'll give you some information on what occurred at that time at the landfill, which caused the stink. But you don't trust these monitors, is that it?
John, I gotta jump in just for a second on that, and to defend the monitors there, and I have to tell you, as a former mayor of that town, it was bad. I mean, it smelled like a dog bone. That's what they were manufactured, it smelled like a burnt dog bone, there. And I was there, not as a commissioner, but as a mayor there, when the health department got there, and I watched these devices they had, and they came up no order. I'm like, this is unbelievable. I mean, you could clearly smell it. And these things were not proven to be accurate. I don't know if it enhanced since then, but I can tell you back then it was horrible.
Well, I've sent to various people the number of companies that I've researched, okay, that can demonstrate the accuracy of their product. I don't know if you did any work on them. Unfortunately, 2 of them are in Canada, so it's difficult to, but nevertheless, they're very, very sure that their product works. And it's monitors that are placed in strategic areas of the landfill, and when the system is violated, it sends a signal someplace with the date, the time, and the level of violation.
Right, and
And
you're.
so I've sent that information, and I've done some research. Have you done the research?
Well, you're bringing up something that I don't have enforcement capabilities to do, right? So your residents are smelling it with their nose and not a meter, so I'm gonna go there and use my nose and not a meter. The meter you wanna put up is what maybe some of the other landfills did along their property line to establish if odors were going off-site. And that's a completely different thing. And that's not something that we have the ability to promote or enforce. That would be maybe through the permitting process with the landfill and the DEP with their permit and what they're allowed to do. We're here for the citizens making the odor complaint at their home.
Mr. Santiago, I just want to solve this problem, and the
Same.
complaint
So do I.
system isn't working. It's just not working. You can look at the numbers. I have them right here, they were sent to me last night. How can this system be working? You had 59 complaints, 7 on-site visits, and no statement of complaint. How can this be working?
Right, because a lot of the people didn't pick up their
But say
phone.
the 7 ones that were there, I mean, I gotta believe there was more than 7.
Yeah, right, so we did 7 on-site investigations with 0 odors detected. And that's the finicky nature of the odor.
And that's the
It's
other
not
part of the
lasting
problem.
for more than, a half hour. Sometimes it lasts longer. I'm not here to say it doesn't. But we understand the problem. I can only do what we have the ability to do.
Well,
Well, if you believe the system should be changed, then change it, obviously, because if the investigator has to agree there is an odor, he's the final say. That's why there's no statements of complaint. He has to agree there's an odor before a statement of complaint is made.
Right, so that inspector did not observe an odor because there was no odor.
So let me ask you.
At what time?
Let me ask you this question. I'll use Sunday for example. Did we get any complaints on Sunday?
They didn't, we did.
Okay. Well, that I can't help, because they.
Right,
got-
right,
they got
absolutely.
help, yeah.
Absolutely.
But we had no complaints on Sunday. Did DEP
0.
have any complaints on Sunday where they?
Not that I know of, not Sunday. Monday
That's a
we
problem.
had some.
But that is a breakdown in communication, because
Absolutely.
maybe they did.
Absolutely, because
Mhm.
I know there was an odor on Sunday. It has been good for, it slowed down, I'm not definitely going to discount that. But on Sunday there was, so I would expect that there would have been an amount of calls to our system. So one way or another, our message is not getting out properly to go the right process. Calling you, putting it on Facebook, that's going to go nowhere.
Absolutely, I agree.
It's got to go to the right, and quite frankly, I don't even want it to go to the DP right now. I'd rather it go right to us, because I looked at that sheet, at no fault to you guys. Here, I looked at that sheet, and I saw calls going into DP at 12 o'clock at night, or at 12 o'clock in the morning, and answered at 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, of course, the odor's not there 7 hours later, so they're detecting the odor there. That's a flaw in the system. Not you guys at the DP. So we have to take more control of having the residents know that the direct line is the county. I mean, regardless, and we need one number, and that's the key, one number there. So that is the direction that we're asking you. When I say we, Nick, Eric, I look at both of you guys, that's a flaw in the system there that, at the end of the day, if we got to supersede the DEP, then we have to do, they're not here, there's no they were invited, and there's no representative from DEP here, okay?
Incidentally, Commissioner, 33 calls in the month of February were handled by DEP.
At what time? They got it.
Tell me that.
Well, I have it.
And I just-
And what's happening is when the call comes in and when they dispatch it out, and when it's answered, is irrelevant.
But DEP is the only one that assigns a complaint number, correct?
Right, when you call that number, it
it's
gives you
us.
the date and time to the minute you call. So each number that you get is represented by the time you call.
And that's by DEP.
That is by the DEP.
Okay. So 33 of those, that's something else I'm confused by. DEP makes a decision on who's going to handle the complaint? What criteria do they use?
I'm not sure what that criteria is.
They have to
I would say that they are, so the call goes into a call center, like an operator, and that person has to put it through to the DEP's air person. So when the on-call air person gets all the list of complaints, he is then, or she is calling that person, are these odors happening? If they don't pick up, it's not being forwarded. So a lot of those calls are, and why you see they handled 33 with 0 verifieds, is they are taking that first step to calling the resident. And if the resident will either say, I don't want an investigation, or they're just not picking up the phone. Anybody that does pick up the phone, they kick it down to the health department to do the investigation.
That's just why I'm asking, what criteria do they use?
Right, so that's the criteria that I know, and I don't know anything else. They might have other criteria that they follow.
Well, once again, you could see it's not working.
No,
It's not working.
We're not, I don't think
And
that there's gonna be any disagreement
You know,
with us on that.
and I
And
just can't see
think
it. If you have an
we-
absence of a monitor,
And Jeff, you
how's
and I
it gonna
talked
work?
about the flaw in the two-number system here with calling. It's gotta be directed to us.
So, John, can I just, I've heard 3 key things. Can I just summarize what I've heard all of you guys say, right? One is you want the calls to go directly to Monmouth County Board of Health, right? The current process, though, the enforcer, the only one that has the power to issue violations, to my understanding, is DEP, correct?
And us.
No,
And-
You
and
do
us.
have the power
They do
to.
too.
We are agents of the DEP for Monmouth County.
Okay, so do we need DEP's approval to forward it directly, like to change the protocol?
No.
Okay, so that's one avenue, right, changing the protocol, as you indicated, Tom, so it goes directly to DEP. Second one sounds like we have to follow up directly with DEP, which is getting them to, during the permitting process, whether it's for Phase 4 or just moving forward, to be able to require perimeter monitors that John's indicating with these various vendors. Is that correct? Do we need to go through DEP, or is that something that the
So I'm
county
gonna
can
ask
do?
Waste Management that question. Do we, I'm sure in other landfills that you guys operate there, do they have those systems on the outside?
Most do not. Most rely on a site dedicated inspector.
Like, do any of them have them?
We're piloting a couple of the units that Mr. Mantinelli forwarded through. but they're not where they need to be as far as being very effective at detecting members.
Well, what about Atlantic County? Do they have them?
They're using, so I think they're using the Virus Suites program now, they're following it as well. I think before that, they had site points where their on-site person would go visit consistently throughout the day, make observations with his nose. But I think they're in the same place we are. The technology's there to be able to detect H2S at the perimeter, but no other sources of odor or constituents in landfill gas. That's to say that you could definitively say it's a landfill gas odor. Because there are other sources of odor in and around Monmouth County, just like there are at other landfill facilities. So what's not effective at telling anyone is where did that odor necessarily come from. You try to set it up, downwind of the facility so it's more effective, but it doesn't always work.
It would be good if we could give that a shot.
So when you say pilot, I know what you're talking, Risa, about, is that, so if we were to pilot that here, whether it was effective or not, obviously it's trial and error to see if it was. Is that something that you would recommend that we should pilot around, do a pilot program around here?
Yeah, we can pilot, and I don't think you would have to do any permitting department to do that. You should be able to just move forward with that.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then the third thing is, you mentioned, Tom, the night shift, right? Most of the residents' complaints, that at least that I've heard, they're happening more at night.
Of course, I would believe that.
Like 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. So if the county's not having a night shift and the calls aren't being forwarded or being received until 7 or 8 a.m., the smell's gone, right? And then they call back and people have just left for work, right? So that's a huge issue to me, is if we can get overnight shift work, I think we're going to pick up a lot of the complaints and have them be responded to more timely.
Good.
Thank you. I had 2 follow-up questions. What is the time frame, in your estimation, for the website? Because if we had like one central location for all of this information, that would be helpful. Right now, things are in multiple places. Do you have any idea when that might be up and running?
So we would want to create, I would think it would be beneficial for us to create one website, like you're saying, Mayor, that where it could be the only contact for you to disperse to your residents, for us to notify your residents, and not just your residents, the surrounding area residents that are affected too, because it's not just Tinton Falls that we get them somewhat complaints from. So that might be an idea that we could.
We're working on consolidating all the information to the Reclamation website.
Okay, and then we'll disperse it to Tinton Falls. Let Tinton Falls disperse it on however you feel is appropriate. But we'll also do it to the surrounding areas. And I'll follow it back up with my email list that, went out to, I will say, on behalf of your residents, my email that went out to them, if I'd like to share with you the response back from your residents. They were thankful of it. I mean, they really were very respectful to it. Not pleased, but they were respectful that they were receiving the information back. So that's going to continue to happen.
Okay, fantastic. The other question I had, in terms of the processing plant that Mr. Persley mentioned with the gas company, any idea of time frame with that?
I think you can give some sort of timeline, right?
It's likely to be at least a two-year permitting situation. We have to go through 5 different agencies in the state, DPU, the Treasury, local government services, comptroller. So we're going through, we're almost through the comptroller's office. And we had a meeting yesterday to go over what the schedule was and working together with the gas company. So we're coming together on that to try and expedite all the approvals that are necessary, which we're going to start on.
And my fellow
Thank you.
commissioners and myself expedited the process through our system for the approval, and it's actually on our agenda. Is it next week? It's next week, the 28th, next week.
And the useful life, just to ask Joe, the useful life is like 20 years now, right? What's the useful life on that? Once that's up and running, it's 40.
for the gas collection.
It's a 20-year contract with 2 10-year
Okay.
extensions.
So that's a long-term thing, is my point.
Council President, can I just ask a quick question on that?
Yeah.
So you guys introduced, this is the gas collection plant, if you will, that you introduced to us, I
Yes.
think, about a year ago, right? That you
Yeah,
were
but it
long-term
took,
visioning.
it took, we had to go through the comptroller, we had to go through all those regulatories.
So I think the question I had at the time, and you didn't have the plan solidified yet, where on the site will it be? And how long will it take in the build process? Because my concern would be, if you're going to transition from flares to this collection system, is there a risk that in that transition process, however long it may take to build, we'll see increased smells as it's being transitioned?
Likely no. All right, we are building the new gas collection or the gas processing plant in the same place that the gas processing plant was when it was turning gas into electricity. It's at the far
Okay.
end. Northwest. So it's as far away from Sheffield Road as you could possibly go without going into the woods behind the property.
Okay.
In terms of their construction, we have the process of constructing the plant. They're in the process of designing it now. We have a meeting coming up in a week to go over what they've designed and what our statistics are regarding how much gas we're collecting, what's the capacity that they're going to set up that plant for. Is there going to be excess gas that we can sell somewhere else, or are they going to take it all? There's also a connection line that has to be finalized to get gas from the landfill to their main pipe, which is out on 33. So we're moving, and we will get it done as fast as we can. It means a significant amount of work, but also the rewards are going to be very good.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
So, in the short term, how are we going to resolve this responding to complaints? In the short term, how are we going to do
So
that?
we are going to take, and I don't want to speak for everybody here, but we are going to take an active approach to try to consolidate where the responses go into, so that the response time can come quicker out. On top of that, we're going to look to do more shift work in the proximity of the landfill, so that your response time is quicker, so the accuracy of the complaint is obviously better there. So those things should happen in, I'm going to say, very timely fashion. Very, very timely fashion.
So, and the problem delineated tonight was they don't call back, the resident or the complainant doesn't call back.
Well, I think that would somewhat go away with the complaint, the person calling the complaint. Use, for example, this building here, and they're over at the landfill. The proximity to getting here is much quicker, so the likelihood of them still being in that location probably, is probably better, unless they are walking out to work, like you said before. We'll
A
never
lot
guarantee-
of that is true, Tom.
I know.
They're
We'll never-
leaving for work.
No, I believe it is. I believe it is. But I mean, there's no way to control that. I mean, you can't.
Except that you could leave a message. Could call
If they-
back.
If they answer, we
Could call back and leave a message. We did try to call. We have to set up an appointment. Because
We
in
could-
your, in your instructions here, it
we could
tells you to go
definitely-
back and leave a card.
We could definitely leave a message.
Another thing residents mentioned is that there were times they got a call and it was like an undisclosed number, and then they didn't answer because they didn't recognize the number. And I don't know if there's any technological way to address that.
I've heard that numerous times. So the number that comes in is an undisclosed number. So people traditionally don't answer that, but unless, if there's a way, and we're having a few people shake their heads here, and I've heard that numerous times, that same issue. So is there a way that we can identify,
The county lines normally all have some sort of identifier on them.
okay, even cell phones, and if they're calling from a cell phone? Or,
If it's a county cell.
yeah, so I think what we'll have to do is, maybe when that's happening, it's not a county cell phone, and they're calling it from their private cell phone, obviously not disclosing that. We'll do away with that, and we'll make sure that it comes from, they all have county phones, so they should be using it there.
Sounds good.
Okay, excellent. I think at this time, I'd like to move to our resident questions that are related to the Reclamation Center. When you come up to the podium, please state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes so that everyone can be heard. Are there any? Yes, Mr. Kiesler.
Bill Kiesler, 71 Edinburgh Court here in Tinton Falls. For the website, is there like a alpha date when you'd expect to have a alpha up and running?
I don't have one right now, sir. We're working on consolidating all the sites and using a hotline number, so. If I gave you a guess, it would be off, so I apologize.
Would there be a date for a date?
I think what we'll do is once, in about a week or so, we'll notify the town on that. Is that fair?
And that would be the alpha date or the turn-up date, you'd provide that maybe in a week?
Could we?
2
could we
weeks?
At least provide a date on when it will be up?
Yes, and as long as it was the town, I'm good.
Okay. And we would notify the municipality there of when that date would be, of when it would go active, not that it would
The
be.
Reclamation site already exists on the town website.
Yes, it does.
We're just looking to enhance it and put all the.
And make that the funnel, the funnel of all questions and inquiries.
Right.
And again,
Expanding what exists, so
just
it's there now.
a date for a date's good, and if that's a week, good, but just in a week, you'll have some dates for the town?
We'll give some dates to the town when it can go, when it will be live.
Good, good.
The site-
But I mean, when it would all be consolidated with the
Yes,
number.
we have, we're
Yes.
adding more to it.
Yes,
So we're gonna
yeah,
do-
when we'll be completed with that.
We now need to look at the hotline. for some
Yeah,
sort of-
yeah, exactly.
And, okay, I've got a rain question.
But then you better ask that, man.
Are you sort of planning for maybe 10-year rains or 20-year rains or average rains? And what I'm saying is, it rains here, right? As I go to other parts of the US, it rains more. So there, they make their planning for the kind of rain they have. Can we make plans so that this is a problem, not every 5 years, but maybe every 20 years or every 30 years?
Yeah, I think to answer the question, and I touched on this a little bit at the last meeting, what we're seeing
I
with
was
these.
here last meeting.
What's that?
I was here last meeting.
Yeah, so what we're seeing is the consistency of these real significant rainfall years is increasing in frequency. So it was every 10 years before, now it seems like it's every 5. So we're working with the county to adjust the phasing and the gas system expansion, like every year is like a 2018 or a 2023. So we're gonna spread out the work over the entire year. Instead of doing like one gas project in the spring or the fall, we'll do 2, one spring, one fall. That we have crews on site. We're having more severe weather or heavier rainfall, we can expand the work scope and install the controls.
So my takeaway then is more worst-case planning rather than
Correct.
best-case planning.
And then the phasing for the capping will also help with that. So we're closing down the amount of open area that's exposed to the elements where the rainfall's getting in. That's a benefit we've observed at all our other facilities. That certainly helps a lot with the plan.
Around monitors, I know that the folks up in Kearney had some success with hydrogen sulfide monitors. And if you had a pilot program here, would you be deploying hydrogen sulfide monitors or monitors that may be more attuned to catching the non-sulfide sulfurs that really annoy people? In other words, is this pilot monitoring hydrogen sulfide or monitoring the other components of landfill gas that are really obnoxious?
Well, EnviroSuites was primarily monitoring H2S, just like Kearney was. So their current claim is that they have new monitors that are able to detect other constituents of landfill gas. We'll be able to sort of prove that out in the pilot, see if they
So
can do that.
I've been told here repeatedly, 5 years ago, every time I'm here, that we don't have a hydrogen sulfide problem at the landfill. I think we should measure hydrogen sulfide, but what I've been told repeatedly is there's no hydrogen sulfide program. I mean, Ari, you told me that 5 years ago.
Yes, we're monitoring that, monitoring hydrogen sulfide.
Okay. So I think it's something, it's the other sulfur stuff that is not hydrogen sulfide, but also that other sulfur stuff is kind of hard to measure. So if you go down a path with us to deploy some monitoring, if you stop hydrogen sulfide, I don't think that's going to be helpful. So I think it needs to be more comprehensive in terms of the other non-sulfide sulfur compounds that are really obnoxious.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue. I don't think they have the technology that's able to do that. In
And-
that situation, your nose is typically the better indicator, so.
But I haven't done as much research as John has, but my research tells me that the non-hydrogen sulfide stuff is hard to measure in real time. You deploy some gas, you deploy some gas collection in a matrix, you take it back to a lab, you do gas spectrometry on it, and then in a couple of days you know what it was. But it's not quantitative, it's not real time. But as a layperson, I'm suggesting that if you go looking for hydrogen sulfide, you may not find any, and you're still going to have resident complaints. I'm a layperson. Whatever you do for the health folks, it has to deal with the transients, and the transients are not going to be there in even 2 hours, if you will. The other comment is, I retired a couple years ago. I had a lot of spare time. I think whatever reports you're getting for complaints, I suspect that the real problems are 5x or 10x more than that. So as I look at the traffic in that landfill group that we have, I think people have sort of gotten frustrated about even reporting, if you will. So I don't know what your sense is, John, but I think that the reporting fraction is a tiny fraction of people that are having serious issues with the landfill problem.
Thank you.
So it has to deal with the transient, and I think you also have to win back, if you will, goodwill of the people that are being inconvenienced.
I agree with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kessler.
Hi, Michelle Simon, Madison Court in Tinton Falls. I want to reaffirm my experiences with calling in to the hotline. So I've had a couple different experiences. One is where I've called and I didn't get a return call at all, and I was staying up all night, and then I had to go to work in the morning. Another experience was I called and then I received a call in the morning on my cell phone while I was at work, and I said, well, I'm at work now. Here it is, like how many hours later. And then another experience, which was a little bit more evolved. I had called, I had waited to call, I just really don't even want to have to call, right? And I'm like, well, how bad does it really have to be for me to call? And so this one night, it was so bad, it was in my bedroom. And I said, well, I'm going to call. And I called. It was a good experience. I got somebody from DEP, and they, it was an operator, Operator 126. He was great. And then I was told I was going to get another phone call. I got a phone call from the Division of Air Monitoring. And that person was also great and went through and explained what the next part of the process was. Then I got a phone call, within a relatively short period of time from Monmouth County. And it may have been Mr. Santiago, if he's still here. Oh, yeah, there you are. It may have been you. And you were very helpful. And so you had told me, if it was you, I was explaining that I had this smell in my house, and I was instructed to go outside to see if I still smelled the smell outside. And in fact, I didn't, right? So that the smell dissipated outside, but it was still within my house. And so that did not constitute the Monmouth County Health Department coming out and filing a complaint. So, I waited, right, and finally made that call. So I think that's something that the residents should know, is that as soon as they start to smell it, they need to make that call right away. But it was, I can say there was only 2 times it actually did come into my house and the odor was really bad. So I think that that's really important. So I think that the system works sometimes, other times it doesn't work.
It's gotta work all the time.
And you're right, I agree with you. And so the other thing is just thinking about it, because sometimes I'm going to work in the morning or I'm coming home in the evening and I smell the odor as I'm driving down Shafter Road. Excuse me. So if I'm smelling it at that point, and I've been instructed from, the different people that I spoke to, that you actually have to be at your home in order to file the complaint. So my issue is, if we're starting to smell it on Shafter Road and it's really bad, well, we know it's probably going to travel. I'm not a scientist, but it's probably going to travel, and then it does. So I guess, and I don't have to tell anyone who, works around that area, it's bad, right? So sometimes it might travel more than others. But why can't we call, if we're smelling it? And people do smell it. People smell it on the parkway, right? They smell it all over. So why do we have to be at our homes? I understand, somebody's maybe got to be there to, take a complaint and for enforcement purposes. I get that. But we still should be able to call in and say, we're experiencing these odors, and to be proactive instead of reactive when it gets into the neighborhoods where we live.
So and you and I have had our differences. I totally agree with what you were saying here on with the part of being, because at the end of the day, yes, the enforcement side, going to your home, yeah, it's important. But at the end of the day, the big game plan here is to have no odor. So if you smell the odor as you're driving down the parkway, which we all know, a lot of people tell us that's the #1 place they smell it at. Okay, it's driving down the parkway. We should be able to notify the health department, not for as much as the enforcement, but just to be able to let the operators know there's a problem.
Right.
And so I do agree with you there.
Okay.
So I think we should work on that.
Okay. The other thing is that, there's a lot of references to the rain, and that's when the odors come. But that is not always the case, and that was not the case when I actually had, called to file one of my complaints. It had not been raining. So why does that occur in those instances?
I can't answer that.
Yeah, so like right now, we have the well drilling going on, so that could be a potential source of odor right along Shafter Road while they have that open borehole where they're drilling the well. There may be some other things happening in the landfill where we're working on a couple control devices that could lead to potential off-site odors, but in many of those instances, it wouldn't carry very far. It would be really immediately adjacent to the landfill property boundary, right along Shafter Road. So that's kind of more.
But it did carry
observing.
far enough, I'm sorry to interrupt, it did carry far enough to get to my house, right? And, I'm on Madison Court, I'm down the road, I'm not too far, but I'm, within a relatively close distance. So it does occur. So, I just wanted to put that out there. And that's one of the things that residents are really frustrated about. And if you, were to read the Facebook group, you would, see what people write, and they say, oh yeah, they're saying it's the rain again, but it's not raining. So I just want to put that out there, and that's something maybe, you can look to communicate to the residents as to why that's occurring. Maybe you can take a look at that, because they're not believers. They're just believers in, some of the information that's coming forward. I think that this is the best that we've ever had in terms of, response from, the county and of course, Waste Management and certainly our council. This is the best. It took 7 years that I've been coming forward, and I'm just a regular old person living, my life. So I just want to also compliment everyone on that. The last thing I just want to say is that, just with reference to the monitors, I think it's really important, right? So, and I think we all do have different senses of smell. And, so there's a lot of people, residents that, are, disbelievers with regards to, the smelling of the odor. And I respect whatever the process is in place. But, you know, just in kind of researching quickly, right, you look at the Keegan landfill, the state mandated monitors in that instance, right? So if they're mandating monitors, there must be some value in that. And there must be other landfills that have monitors and that can be placed, you know, throughout strategically within the community. And there are other ongoing current projects in different places, not necessarily landfills, that are using monitors to, you know, do the air quality.
So just to point out Keegan, so there is a pretty big difference between Keegan's facility and Monmouth's facility. Keegan is a construction and demolition debris site, so that facility was accepting the materials that would have sulfur-bearing waste like wallboard, those things
Yeah,
that
I
would
get
generate
that.
more H2S. So in their case, H2S was certainly more discernible and detectable at the property boundary, and that's why they had the monitors. Monmouth, we're primarily a municipal solid waste landfill. It's the curbside collection from the residents. There's very little construction demolition debris coming in, so there's a much lower concentration of H2S
Sure, I
and landfill
understand
gas.
that.
So it's not as effective to detect.
Right, so I guess my point is that if they're mandating monitors, right, and I'm not speaking specifically to what was in the landfill at Keegan, but it's the use of monitors, right? So if monitors are in existence, are there any monitors that would be specific to, you know, what's going on in Monmouth County? And I think Councilman Manginelli has been doing a lot of research, as well as our council president. So I just hope that, you know, you continue to move forward with that, because I think that that's something that the residents really want. So that's what I
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Anjali Baxi. I'm actually a resident in the Wayside section of Ocean Township, so I'm right on the border of Tinton Falls and Ocean. I just had a couple questions. One for waste management was, what was the time frame for the 75% cap? I didn't catch that. Did we say 2 years?
It'll be probably by the summer of next year, so
Summer
just
of next year.
a year, a little over a year.
Okay. And then the other question I had actually was about the complaint process, and I've certainly engaged in it with myself. And one of the things I actually had a question about was, is there any way we could like move the process online? Because it seems like, and it may not be, and it may not be necessarily even going to the official level of a Monmouth County complaint, but kind of a data aggregating process, just because sometimes I smell it in my bedroom at 4:30 in the morning. I'm not calling anybody at 4:30 in the morning because I'm not inviting them into my bedroom at 4:30 in the morning, right? Or I'm not waking up my kids, I'm not waking up my husband. It's just I'm smelling it and I'm like, oh, no.
So just to let you know, that's
Yeah.
part of the process what we're trying to implement.
Okay.
There, that has definitely been something that we've spoken about.
Okay, 'cause
There,
that-
to make it, I think it would be better for numerous reasons, for what you just said. If we're having somebody monitor the site, and more importantly, that we have the information stored there, I think it would help for all matters to be able to have that.
Yeah, and I mean, if it's not anonymous, you're not gonna necessarily have pranksters, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you actually have people who legitimately will maybe just open up an app or open up their, you know, on a website and just say, oh yeah, I smelled it at this time, and then, you know, go about their business. And maybe it didn't rise to the level of something that DP would say someone needs to come out for, but it is out there,
Yeah, absolutely.
so,
There is a DEP app.
Okay.
That you can download to your phone, and you can make any on that app.
oh, okay.
And you can be anonymous on that app as well.
But we won't get that data.
It is there.
Oh, it's, okay, that's good to know.
We will make sure that that's conveyed part of the process when we get back to you.
Yeah, that would definitely be better if we had control
Yeah.
of that, were you,
Yeah.
as opposed to the DEP, where we might not capture that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we come back, I want to see if there are other residents who have questions or concerns. Yes.
Stay. Hi, Mitch Colbert, 21 Cedar Place. I'll try not to take too long because a lot of this, I think, has been rehashed. In particular, I think Councilman Buckley rolled it up pretty well earlier. You know, just listening to everything everybody's saying, this seems like a pretty I mean, there's a lot of facets to it, and you guys are doing a lot of work, all that's great, but there's a major misaligning between, government and the public, right? And I got no problem with government, I love it, but in this case, right, you guys are working from 8:30 to 4:30? Yeah, guess what? That's when we're all working too, right? So, this whole idea of, you got to return the call and then come out, even if we answer the phone, where, a lot of these people are at work, right? So I just think, that's something you really got to figure out a way to fix, right? Now, granted, this doesn't maybe rise to the same level, but when I call the police department, they don't have to call me back before they show up at my house, right? So if if we place a call, obviously this idea if you can get a second shift going, and if you place a call and you have somebody stationed near there like you're suggesting, like some of these things are being talked about, just kind of reiterating that, because it seems to make so much sense, right? You have somebody, you place the call, somebody can come out and check it out and smell quickly. Clearly these things are transient, they're coming and going, and so I think that's probably one of the biggest things, that and the whole multiple phone number thing, right? That's a little nutty, and the thresholds, I mean, all of it, I'm sure put in place for perfectly good reasons, but in this case, it's creating a failure, right? So, a single number to call, somebody answers, somebody comes out, and if you're not there, by the way.
But they may not be there. Somebody may not be there, Mitch, and they don't want to just come out. I mean, it's different.
Why not?
When you call the police, you wait for them to get to your house, so that's not going to work either.
Sure, but it doesn't change. If I call the fire department because my neighbor's house is on fire, and then I go to work, their house is still on fire.
That's totally unrelated things to firefighters, sir.
What?
Completely unrelated things to firefighter. You smell something in here versus somebody's house is on fire, we're showing up. But it's
Sure.
something that's-
No,
And also, the other thing is, I think we've gone through it. Like, we have some positive response as to how those things will be addressed. So rather than doing a rehash, I think we've gotten answers about it.
Yeah, all right.
And we have a time frame.
All right, two things that we didn't talk about. Well, first, actually, somebody said $25 to $30 million of investment. That's not above and beyond. You didn't add $30 million to the.
Well, we have a long-term capital plan.
Okay.
So we, the county, we've been very, proactive in planning financially for what you see down the road. So we're not hitting
All right.
a drastic hit. So that's over a period of planning, now moving forward with those figures.
All right. And last thing, and I don't think we'll resolve this, but I know at the first meeting, we said one of the biggest sources of the smell in general is the food waste, right? It's all the food, organic waste that's going in there and reacts with the water and all this sort of stuff. I wouldn't want to change anything we're already talking about, but I don't know if anyone's considered the possibility of trying to reduce that food waste, right? Other places have like composting or other things, something where you can start to separate that out. Again, that would have to be an addition. I don't think that's going to make this go away, but just something no one's mentioned really in all this, and that might help that out. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks. Yes. Mr. Tobin.
Hi, Brendan Tobin, 5 Chestnut. Question, do you still have the County SWAC, Solid Waste Advisory Council? You still have that?
Yes.
Is there a representative from Tinton Falls on the board? Because I was it for years, and we had representatives, anybody doesn't know what the SWAC is.
I don't know
It
who's
was
on that
It was
board
the
right
town
now.
surrounding the
All the members on
land,
that
using a
board.
landfill that had members on the board. We met monthly, plus we would be liaisons to go out and find out stuff that was going on. And also, I think we had one guy, he used to
There
actually.
is, there is.
Okay, good.
That's ours.
Guy used to work at the, live at the landfill, Richie. I think he retired though.
He did.
Yeah, he retired.
He was.
He left.
But everybody got so spoiled because they'd call, he'd pick up the phone and go out and handle it. He actually lived there.
No,
So
we-
that
we
was
know.
dedication. So I'm saying is, this has been going on for a while. You guys have been trying to come up with solutions. And one thing I have an issue with, having lived here for so long, is, and having served in a community where people don't get out of their house and even come to a meeting after getting on Tinton Falls Social complaining. I have been around here for so many different parts of it, and that's how I know what's going on here. I know the dedication you guys have to doing this. It's not easy. It's not. A lot of people bought houses on Sundays in the South End because the realtor knew they weren't going to see the trash trucks. And they were specifically on Sundays. And a lot of people were told, oh, they're closing the landfill by 2030. People thought the garbage was going to get hauled out and taken somewhere else. And they fell for it. And that, I'm sorry, don't go taking it out of the county if that's what you believe, that they were going to haul the garbage out there, that the whole thing is going to go away. So, there's a lot of it. So just, I appreciate what you're doing. I want to give you guys a little bit of backing here because.
And I have to say one thing, that Eric, Nick, and myself, we weren't here when the landfill came.
Yeah.
We're left with the, I guess, left with it now.
Yep.
What's that?
I wasn't born.
Yeah.
I'm going to respect
Easy.
the 3-minute time window, and I'm going to sit down.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Tobin.
I do want to just say one thing before we close, and I think we're almost ready to close here, is that, the county truly, I mean, regardless if you believe in us or you like us or you don't like us, we're committed to Tinton Falls, and we've shown that just recently, even with a total investment by the county of Monmouth on our EMS center there that we've done here, led by our sheriff, but financed by us. And strictly, Tinton Falls is the hub there, and and it's I think it's proven to be able to save lives here, and it's something that we're proud of. But that's not it. We also have to continue the quality of life that we basically know that you guys deserve. And that's part of land. Whether you bought here after the landfill was already here, it's still a quality of life that you deserve. And each and every one of us, I'd be sitting in that seat here doing the same thing to whoever was sitting in my seat if this was occurring. So I'm sitting in this seat along with my colleagues to fix this problem. And Charlie, is that right? That's kind of amazing. It's more than I ever expected. He just pushed in front of me. We have answered, since we've started, over 500 calls that were unanswered here in, it's just not here, it's in Falls.
The region, since you started the program.
Since we started the program here. And only 2 calls went to mutual aid, which is amazing when you think about that, if you know the mutual aid process here. So, and I want to commend, and I want the residents, you could thank us for it, but commend the governing body to be able to make tough decisions. Because not every decision is easy that you have to make, and you get pushback from it there. But it was the right decision for the people. We will make the right decision to make this better. I give you my word on it. I said it before. We fixed the problem. The problem's back. We got to permanently fix the problem and make the process better for you guys.
Thank you, Director.
Thanks. In the interest of time, I'd ask if there's any other questions that you email them, because we do still have a full council agenda. I'd like to thank Commissioner Director Arnone and our other officials and other professionals for tonight, and also for the meetings that we've been having throughout the past month. I thank you for your responsiveness and your promise of things to come, that it's going to improve quality of life for our residents.
Thank you.
And you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Oh, we had no intention.
Take care.
Thanks. I'll see you. Where? Can you get a cigarette? Oh, yes.
Good night. You're welcome.
Thank you.
White is,
No, well, because it isn't, because things are happening.
Yes. Well, they haven't given the board yet.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, at this time, we're going to move on to council reports. I'd like to start with Mr. Fallon, our CFO.
Thank you, Council President. I have no report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fallon.
Mr. Tarafanko.
I won't belabor the point. However, I just wanted to point out, this is information we had gotten from the Monmouth County Sheriff's Department EMS through Mr. Sidley, who is the operations manager there. And again, 500 calls were answered, only 2 mutual aid calls. nearly 14 calls answered per day, 10 transports per day. But the key here is, in the data that they've provided to us, is the response time. 5 minutes and 37 seconds in their response time on average. So I think that's...
Can I just add to that 1 second? I don't want to interrupt your meeting, but I have to say a funny story that occurred the day we went live. So the sheriff's rules, and these are the rules that he established, that our ambulances are not allowed to be stationed at a location. They have to be on the road, constantly roaming the areas or whatever area, region that they're in. Well, ironically, we went live, and I forget the date, Charlie, that it was the beginning of February. And it was 7 o'clock. We went live. He kicked off everything. We went live. I was there. We kicked off everything. Cars go out. They're roaming. The one ambulance is in front of a house in Oakhurst. The call comes in. The ambulance is right in front of the house. They got there in 21 seconds. Everybody thought, oh my God, this thing's going to be quick. We had to deter that, but it's kind of a very interesting situation that occurred there. But thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
So just to finish up, and I just want to, again, thank our volunteers, because I think with this system in place, it's already showing the fruits of the labor, where it's taken a lot of strain off of the volunteers, and they are doing their call services at night as promised. So I just wanted to thank the volunteers that are still over at EMS North as well. And that concludes my report.
Thanks. Mr. Keneally, who's here from Mr. Starkey this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hutchinson, our clerk.
I just have a reminder that the deadline for county committee petition submissions is Monday, March 25th, before 4 p.m. And please contact the Borough Clerk's office with any questions. Thank you.
Thanks. Dr. Tobe, oh, I'm sorry. Moving on to council reports. Councilwoman Buckley.
Thank you, Council President. Just have one reminder, the next Environmental Commission meeting is March 28th at 7:30 p.m. I think I just have we currently use a hybrid system where some members and members of the public call into the meetings as well as come in person. I'm understanding that we're going to be switching off of like the WebEx, so just kind of a general note out there for folks to be aware of. They should be able to see an update of that whenever that switches. I think it's, Earth Day is going to be April 28th, right? I think we're still coordinating on the timing and the flyer, but I'm hoping that that will be published at some point very soon so that folks can become aware.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Tobe.
Okay, this will be a quick report, but the library seems to be coming along, and nothing new to report right now. I know we had another problem on Wardell Avenue and the intersection of Shark River. Big accident recently. Spoke to Mr. Neff about it, and we're going to see what we can do to alleviate that situation at that intersection, because there's been many accidents and many almost accidents at that particular area. So Mr. Neff is looking into it. And I believe we have our Easter egg hunt this Saturday. And do we have a rain date on that? I don't recall.
I thought it was the next day.
The next day?
Right.
Okay. I suppose it's raining the next day.
And there's no eggs.
That's what I just saw on the weather report, so no eggs?
No eggs.
Okay, well, that's about all I have to say, and thank everybody for their patience tonight, and you've done a great job here on the council, and as our business administrator as well, trying to resolve this issue for the 25% of the residents of Tinton Falls. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Mr. Manginelli.
I've heard this song before. All I can tell you, they did a magnificent job of defending a failing system. This is all poppycock. What remains to be seen. Then I'll be happy. That's my closing comment.
Thanks. Mr. Messi, you're going to have to top that.
Okay. Thank you, Council President. Good evening. Just a quick note regarding Planning Board. We, the planning board members, are reviewing a re-examination report prepared by our planner, which is a process whereby a planning board reviews development trends and makes recommendations on potential zoning ordinance changes. A copy is available on the borough website. This is not a master plan, which is far more extensive and expensive. There are limits to do that, but doing this re-examination, it helps us with a myriad of levels. In this project, when reviewed, it's generally fixing ordinances which contradict each other or are extremely outdated. The report also confirms what actions were taken by the government body and in response to our last report. By doing so, we accomplish several goals. It allows us to fix technical problems in the ordinance. By doing this, or master plan, we maintain the validity of our ordinances. This also helps with proper, cheaper, and streamlined notice requirements in the governing body, implements, and the recommendations. And the planning board's general policy to eliminate staleness and archaic requirements, which makes our plan a contemporary document, is intact. Planning board meeting is going to have a short discussion among the boards regarding this. Tom Neff and Christine Bell are the sources for more specific questions, but don't call Tom. I think him and his wife are having a baby. So that concludes my report.
Thanks. In terms of my report, on March 7th, Mr. Terrafranco and I went to the middle school, and we introduced our student government and the community project that we're actually going to be implementing on April 11th. We're going to have members of the middle school student council and borough professionals and several council members that are going to spend a couple of hours with the students talking about government and how things work. And we fielded some very interesting questions during our visit, and we're looking forward to more from the kids. And the other thing I want to mention is their crosswalk is finally happening at Atchison and Sycamore Avenue. All those years in the making, and it's very exciting. It's going up, or it's going in, however you would say it.
It's going across.
It's going across. It's a crosswalk, but it's very good. And that's all I have for my report. There are no ordinances for introduction this evening. There is one ordinance for final consideration. We hold a public hearing with comments limited to 3 minutes, and comments may only pertain to this ordinance. May I ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance?
2024-1511, an ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. NJSA 40A:4-45.14.
Thank you. May I have a motion to open public discussion on this ordinance?
Motion.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this ordinance? Please state your name and address for the record. Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So ordered.
And a second.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any council members that would like to comment on this ordinance? May I have a motion for adoption?
Motion.
Second.
And a roll call.
Ms. Buckley?
Yes.
Dr. Dobrin?
Yes.
Mr. Manginelli?
Yes.
Mr. Nessie?
Yes.
Mrs. Clay?
Yes. Now, moving on to public discussion. May I have a motion to open the public discussion?
Motion.
And may I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is the time the public may comment on any topic of their choice. Please state your name and address for the record and limit your comment to 3 minutes. At this time, I'd like to ask the clerk if any public comments were submitted prior to the meeting via email.
There were none.
Okay, yes, Mr. Tobin.
Hi, Brendan Tobin, still at 5 Chestnut Court. I've not moved in the last 10 minutes. Couple of things. One, there was a complaint online today about the horrendous potholes on West Park from the Wawa all the way down to the stop sign is what it said. I don't know if they mean the stop sign at Calamity Corner where Wayside comes cutting across and people crash a lot, or if they mean only down Hope Road. I said it's a county road, and they said they called the county, and somehow it's our section is Tinton Falls Road. Same way parts of Hope Road are Tinton Falls and parts of Hope Road are county. These were deals made even before I was on council, and they don't make any sense to me. The road's a disaster, and somebody's got to fix the potholes in it. And I also suggest we're looking at giving it back to the county because they took from Hope Road all the way down West Park, all the way to 35 and paved it. So they could have done the whole thing and we wouldn't be having these social media issues. That's just one if you could look into it. Two, as part of the neighborhood watch, I found out at our last meeting that we no longer have a canine corps in Tinton Falls. For those who don't know, we had the nation's #1 canine unit. They beat the DC Capitol Police, and I was down at the Capitol after. I walked up and I said, I'm from Tinton Falls, and they glared at me. I said, I'm the Borough Council President. I fund the canine team, and they were furious, but they knew we had a great team. 2019, one of our dogs, I think it was Shadow, I might be wrong, or Hunter, it was Hunter, went out to the Nationals and got 686.5 out of 700 points, the top dog in the nation. We have a trainer who's a police officer. We have a training ground back there. And I'm being told that the program was phased out because it's too expensive. I heard that same nonsense when I was on council. When I was council president, it was $17,500 a year to have 4 dogs that can run faster than people, that can smell things that people can't smell. One dog tracked in the neighborhood where there were burglaries, kept tracking back to the same spot from the houses that were hit. So what they do, they sat and waited. The guy rode up on his bike to go at the houses, and he looks and, what's up? There's the dog. They found all the stuff at the guy's house still. He hadn't cleared any of it out yet that they know of. We had a system that was fantastic. It was very efficient, and with the number of crime complaints around, I know the police are doing a great job. Having the canines and not having to wait for a team to come out from the county. I mean, how much is it? If it's double what it cost me back then, it's $35,000. We don't have that? We had dogs donated, and if they say we can't give dogs, like the Red Bank vet gave us a Belgian Malinois. If we can't get that, we have gone to other neighborhoods in this town. They mentioned at the neighborhood watch, and they've asked people, we need a system to monitor cars going the wrong way on one-way street. Well, it costs this much, and the neighbors kick the money in. People in this town, I think, would be willing to pay to have 4 dogs, to have 2 dogs, 1 dog, that can go out and do stuff that people can't do in any way to bring down the crime. I'd like somebody to take a look into that and see why we don't have it. I was told it was in fiscal conservancy. There's no fiscal conservancy when it comes to crime. You have to have somebody going to go out there and do something, and those dogs were the best. I know they all get old and retire, but the guys who handle them are still here. The trainer is still here. You know, it started back with Captain Rogers way back when, and we went through it. And these guys, we were the best, and we helped out a lot of people out with it, and I think it'd be important to go back to it. So if somebody could look into that for me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was under 3 minutes, I guarantee it.
Yes, good job. Okay. Hearing no further comments, may I have a motion to close the public discussion?
Motion?
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Does any member of council have anything to add? Okay. We will now move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items any member of the council would like removed to be voted on separately? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
And a roll call.
Ms. Buckley?
Yes.
Dr. Dobrin?
Yes.
Mr. Manginelli?
Yes.
Mr. Nessie?
Yes.
Mrs. Clay?
Yes. This concludes today's business. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is now adjourned, 9:06.